is Landed in Leadership and Enlightenment, a podcast where the guests are exceptional humans that have faced their fears to crest into their best selves, growing into a way they can help their communities, creating opportunities, and sharing their secrets and their tips that they learned along the way. Without further ado, here we are, my friends. Have a great time today and enjoy Leadership and Enlightenment. Joel, every time you and I get together, brother, this conversation, the audience has got something in store for them today. I know it's a treat. Our pre-conversation already led me into that world of light and leadership, and you're one of my my benchmarks, brother. When we ran into each other, a year ago or so on LinkedIn, you had essentially like a spotlight shining out of you on me on the call, and I'm like, I know Joel and I are going to be connected forever, man. Well, how's your day
Yeah.
going, dude? What's going on?
Yeah, it's been an amazing day. Had a couple great team calls and product and marketing, and yeah, I just appreciate your connection, Dean. Thanks for having me on today. And
Yeah.
ever since we connected, literally that first time we had a Zoom call, it was like, whoa, there's some like light, healing, amazing energies being passed between each other, and I felt something special with the connection that we had. So the fact that you're running this enlightened leader, speaks to that a lot.
It does. Well, you and I were already in a little bit of a combo. I want to bring the audience into what were we jiving on? What were you working into as far as this ideal that you've been seeing shine through? And you were talking about a conference recently you're at.
Yeah, light energy. I've been studying this so much. I've grown up in, religion and learning spirituality and understanding. I've written a book in human potential, like capability fuel back here, and I just released my newest work called Currents of Consciousness, this new podcast, and we kick it off with this 4-episode series on the human jelly. And so I've been studying light energy, similar to the jellyfish. We're piezoelectric light beings, and we have electrical light capacity, and really just understanding light. The world has darkness. Where there is darkness, there is light, and where there is light, there is darkness. And so really understanding that world. And, today, thinking about the world, and feels like there are kind of these like dark powers, murk around the world a little bit and affect, humanity at some level. I was at this conference like a week and a half ago, and, these VCs and investors were talking about, different types of leaders that we need in our world. And light was a key concept that kept coming up. And they're asking me about, what I was studying and different things that were on our podcast. And we just started talking about light energy and how light can, bring the world a little bit closer together. It's almost like frequency and energy and light,
Yeah.
and how that can be the thing that really, brings humanity closer together by us realizing how bioluminous and brilliant we are as humans. And if we can help people shine their light in this world, we can unite in a whole new way and a whole new light. And what they were talking about was, we have a lot of leaders in our world that are leading these giant corporations, institutions, even countries, and initiatives in our world. And they're leading maybe out of power and greed, and controlling human behavior at some level, but it's not really uplifting the world and humanity. And so how do we find leaders that can shine their light and lead with light is maybe what the world needs the most.
Yeah, geez, you already just unpacked the world that we're working in, man. I witnessed that myself in my own self, coming into the idea of what I would call, that organized work structure that I came through a lot of years. It was really toned in on me wanting my leadership to appreciate me more than me shining my light into my team and allowing them to grow. It wasn't until my later career I realized that was actually a stronger aspect of who I was. And along the way, I had leaders that actually said to me, "Hey, don't do it your way, man. I know it worked for you, but we need to do it this way." And it's in this alignment. And I felt like you said, like there was this darker energy that was basically fused into me in a certain way to do it. And I don't know if it probably wasn't on purpose. It's more in the idea of this control factor of trying to keep people in control rather than trusting that the light itself is the control and that we really live and breathe in that. And when I had this opportunity to come out and, when I first met you, being in this entrepreneurial world, I was only seeing white light. And yet I realized there were other factors around me that were working against that. And almost like finding and embracing the dark side of yourself and those personality characteristics. I think when you get into that holistic idea of being connected, you have to also realize that there are energies that are working against you that don't want you to be successful. And you could easily misinterpret those as health issue or as you know, not being in the right frame of mind, but the truth is you're being influenced. And how do you put these things in your life on a daily basis that allow you to shine in your strength and really outweigh those ideals and just be aware of them, but work within that strength of the light itself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think how we, how do we get here? I think there's many people in this world that, everybody's out for themselves and what can I, pull into my resources? How can I accumulate as many resources for me in this world? And in the entrepreneurial world, like, there's good things to that if they're servant leaders. And I'll come back to the servant leaders because I got something there is but as people continue to push and get that power, they get addicted to the power in them, and they become the god, they become the person that everything revolves around them, and they forget that either they forget or they never find that, like, true leadership is being the beacon of light to your team, is being that servant
Yeah.
leadership. So I see servant leadership as, yeah, you're actually more of a beacon. How can you build the right team, but then shine your light on your team and give them the capacity to scale? And hopefully there's a good initiative behind why you're building this company, but trying to make the world a better place, solving a real problem in the world compared to just, monopolizing resources for your own benefits.
Yeah. And when did you start kind of feeling this? Were you always tuned in this way since a kid, or did you kind
No.
of grow into this later on?
No, I grew up very religious in the Christian world, and I was love sports. Sports is still my number one passion. I played basketball yesterday because it's still my favorite passion.
Basketball season's back, baby. Everybody's happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean I've been an athlete my whole life, and as I, started to, develop, I went to college to play baseball. And as I got, as I got out of college, like, I started my first company, and that, like, challenged me to a whole nother level of understanding what do I got to do each day to get better, get better, get better. And then I started training entrepreneurs and working with CEOs and training salespeople, and I saw people that had unique gifts and how they approached life. But I was at that time coaching a lot of business. And then through this journey of really working with entrepreneurs and CEOs, I'm like, man, a lot of these people are getting burnout. I started learning about oxidative stress. I started figuring out, like, man, what is making some of these entrepreneurs and leaders and CEOs come back stronger each day, push the boundaries, heal effectively, push the boundaries, heal effectively. And why are some of these people getting burnout? And it got down to habits. And I got
Mm,
overly fascinated in my early with, you know, optimal habits for helping us, approach each day with the best, highest level of energy, the best approach. How do we be effective? How do we, be stoic and handle the chaos for not just ourselves, but for our teams? And if we can't handle it, people are going to see how we respond to chaos. And through all that journey, people are like, man, you're starting to gather all this great information. That's where I kind of wrote my first book. I was like, what am I going to do with all this information? And I started, uncovering information in the world that I call the hidden wisdoms of the world, or ancient
mhm.
text, ancient wisdoms combined with modern science that really fuel abundance. And through all of this deep curiosity and deep research over about a 6-year period, I just started tapping into stuff like Nikola Tesla's work and Gary
Mhm.
Brecka, Peter Attia, Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza. And that really opened up different
Dr.
realms
Joe.
information, dimensional information, quantum physics and quantum entanglement, consciousness expansion. And then it
Mm,
brought me to light energy. And I'm like, whoa, what is this light energy? Churches use stained glass windows for a reason. There's an energy about that color. There's a
mm,
psychology. We have it here in our brand at Linxy,
yeah.
using a little bit of color psychology, connecting people through their own unique color light in their world. And so I just started tapping into this, and then I realized, holy heck, we have light energy within us. We have photons and piezoelectric in our pineal gland, as well as photons throughout our fascia in our body. And we have the capacity, potentially, I believe. I don't like to say anything is truth or fact, but it seems like we have the capacity to expand our light energy through frequency field electromagnetic aura expansion. And as I learned some of these hidden wisdoms that seem to be removed from the education system for us to be able to capture, and maybe because they fear that, and
Yeah, I don't know.
implemented it into my life, I'm like, whoa, it has healing capacity. It has transcendence capacity. It has impact capacity of shining this light and bringing us closer together. And we see all these systems now, these social media platforms, news medias, that their goal is to divide us. That's how they make
Yeah.
money. They make money based off fear and conquering and dividing. And that's how they power us or overpower us or keep power over us. And I'm like, whoa, I think light might be the thing that actually unites us and heals us
Yeah.
and heals us as a humanity.
I'm going to stop you right there because you just nailed it. And I've had this conversation on numerous occasions the last couple of months, and it was my own journey too. And I find so much fascination and curiosity in being pulled into the information. So I got my start in the gym, watching fake media, listening to fake media, and started jumping into podcasts way back in the day and realized like there's information out there that we haven't been given. And I dived into books too. I am a big proponent of listening to audiobooks, being on the spectrum, neurodivergent. My dyslexia allows me to hear more than read and understand. And I dove in deep. I went through Dr. Wayne Dyer's teaching and into Joe Dispenza's and realized there's really a chemical and a physical attribute to aligning yourself within these energies that you're talking about. And in the beginning, you don't see them. It's not physically tangible, but the repetition of a baseline and building on that creates tangible outcomes that you realize, like, hey, I didn't ask for that to just happen. And it did. And it happened because there was a baseline of this consistency that I grew through in these readings or whatever it was. And I found the exact same thing. There was this light, and the light related to the idea of, let's just say, it related to the idea of us eons ago, and the energy itself building back to the almighty source. And along the way, it develops hues and textures from its development. And we can respect that light for the characters that live in it. I call Christ light like this yellowish orange hue, and I see it in my meditations. And I attach to that as a real thing. That's where Jesus lives, Krishna, Buddha. They're all in Christ's light. And you can see that light as kind of this transition from the earthly world to the etherical world. And then there's light above that that falls into this idea of Shakti and Shiva, which are mother father figures in Hindu religions. And above that is the ultimate light. But they all live within that same light. And the other hues, the darker hues themselves, they're not wrong. They live in that same place, but they're not effective. They literally have nothing more than temptation built into them. And when we realize like this light that we're connected into isn't for us to receive, but for us to broadcast, now we really have started to figure something out. We're like receivers of this and
Mhm.
transistors, and our teams feel this. When our transistor is working well and the radio station is tuned in just right, the teams feel that energy and that momentum in your aura, not even in your words. But when you're faking that on the inside and walking around telling everybody I'm fabulous, but on the inside you're not, those signals are not aligning the same way. And your aura essentially is contradicting what you're saying, and your leadership style and skills are starting to dwindle because you're not taking in consideration what's going on the inside. I found it fascinating that I had this opportunity to grow and learn in a magnanimous way in the work industry of the world that we live in what I call, earth manifestation energy. And I was one of the best at it. I created money, revenue, titles, everything. But when I got to the end, I realized like there's more of a strategy than this, and I'm not taking advantage of it. It's like literally not having the tools to go do something or playing golf with just a driver and a putter. And you have all these tools in the middle, and I jumped inside and I did the same work. And when I came out the other side, like you, that's when it really felt like, hey, there's something we can mirror into the world here. It
Yeah.
doesn't come instantaneous. It's not a pill. It's not a solution in the manifestation of this earthly world. It's a joining way of bringing the holistic energy that you were born into this idea of what is this purpose? What are we actually doing within our light? And I've seen it lately, instead of like shining a flashlight and looking for money around it, you're shining the spotlight, and revenue and income follow to generate the energy of the spotlight itself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, you touched on a lot of things there that, getting your authenticity to work for you. People that aren't authentic.
Authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people that aren't authentic, they're not maximizing the number one vibration that we can tap into. Like love has a vibration to it. Authenticity has, they say, like a magnitude of 2,000 times what love does. And that's like, to your point, tuning your light, tuning your signal, And as I've learned more about this frequency field, a lot of what Nikola Tesla's work, what's been hidden from the world, as you build that frequency energy field and you expand that energy and that light to your team, that's where this like idea of the beacon comes from. And how can you be the beacon for your team and give them that, authentic signal, that authentic energy? And I think that's where the beauty is. And
Yeah.
I'm still unpacking it myself in my life. My number one belief is I don't know more than I do know. And so that keeps me very curious, which I think is a superpower. There's actually this recent quote that I just came across within the last couple of days of, how fear, the difference between having a fear mindset and a curious mindset, and fear like captures you and paralyzes you in certain ways
Hmm.
and holds you back. And the curious mindset has you like leaning in and
Yeah.
trying to figure out, what to do next or where to go. And like
Yeah.
it has and it has an effect on your energy field. And it's like you're building your energy field compared to restricting your energy field when you're in these
So
different
wise.
states, or like emotional,
Yeah.
electrical states within our, midbrain.
Yeah. Well, you took me into the authentic conversation a month ago, and I've actually brought that into my life because I'm hands down 100% believer what you said. Once you said that to me, I realized like, you can fake love under the idea of this pretense of being nice, and it doesn't shine through. And I thought that communication was built around words, like people to people. When I realized it was an aura that you're actually displaying, I tested it recently at a cab event. And I went in and I decided, look, I'm not going to be the stereotypical nice guy that I normally am. I'm not going to walk around and compliment everybody on their clothes and tell them I like their watch and the whole thing that I would normally do to set like pretense of relationship with people I don't know. And I decided to just be stoic, answer the questions that were asked of me, is, give my wisdom where it was, not to hold back. And by the last day, we were having one of those wine, drinking conversations where everybody's loosening up. And one of the attendees said to me, "Hey, can I be honest with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You're super cool." And I'm like, "Well, that's nice for you to say." She goes, "But in the beginning, we thought you were like the big D." And I'm like, I could see that. A lot of people think in my world that I'm presenting myself, that I'm that type of person. And I bet I'll be honest with you, my clients love it, the way I negotiate contracts and how I deal with my business. Being the big D helps a lot, being at home with my family and protecting them and all this, that same ideal. And I looked at that person and I said, "But look at it this way. Now I'm your D, right? Like you get the fact that this is the person." And she goes, "Oh, I love having people like you on my side that can fight for me." And it became obvious in that idea of authenticity that she then could see me. And that was the big breakthroughs. Before that, nobody really could see me. They got the vision of the character that I would give them. And I think that that also was reflecting a lot into the teams that I used to lead as well, and how I used to do that is like you can't fake authenticity. It comes from this deep place within you that sometimes doesn't reflect you being in your mind's eye in the best place. But when you wrap it all together and you're really built into this idea of who you are holistically and why you're supposed to be in this world of what you're doing, then those start to become your talents and your strengths, and you really can live through those, and people can aspire around that because again, that aura around you then is absolutely tuned in into your most authentic light.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of work. And like I said earlier, like I don't know more than I do know. I'm at the beginning
Yeah.
stages of even understanding some of these things, but to me it's so profound. I see it working in my life and as well as other people's lives, really, finding themselves in belief and purpose, power people.
Exactly.
And if you have a belief and purpose about you, like everybody should have some type of belief and purpose, and you've got to figure out what authentically that is for you. And if you carry that into the world, it's going to have like a resonance effect on you. It's going to have a frequency field effect on you.
Yeah. And people will tell you like who you are when you're open about it. I shared the story that I see myself as kind of like the guy that opens the rope on the bridge and says, "There's the light. You guys go down that way. I've seen it. It's really great." And one of my friends was like, "Don't kid yourself, dude. You're like the guy on the Harley that shows up on the curb and goes, 'Rum, rum. You want to get on? It's gonna be a fun life. I'll be back
Yeah.
next week if you don't.'" I mean, I have to accept this kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, when you and I met, one of the things that really drew me to you is how you've taken this conversation, you've put it into your business. Your company is really built around connecting these pieces in the hospitality industry and in the convention industry and really just people to people. Share how that works for everybody. I know they're going to want to use your product when they get done hearing about this.
Yeah. I've spent over a decade working with entrepreneurs and sales professionals, like I said, and I saw this missing product in the marketplace. I'm like, why are our event softwares not solving the real-time connection, the networking component, and then also, co-working and coffee shops and music festivals and food festivals, like all these different places we go, people want connection. If I'm in Spain or if I'm in Asia and I see somebody with, an America's hoodie or a UNC Charlotte hoodie or something like that, I'm going to be like, USA or go Bengals or go UNC Charlotte. We're looking for these connectors in our life. Like we want to, make connection. We want to find the conversations and collaborations that we seek, but there was no product in the market really solving this. But what was happening with our world is, especially during COVID, it perpetuated it, is people were working more and more behind their computers. Like everybody in remote work and isolation, and this younger generation grew up not, hey, you need to go out and develop your social skills. It was, you need to develop your technical skills. And so the world found a way to get us so behind screens and get this junk dopamine. And so we have all these people in the world on this junk dopamine, which there's so many benefits to it. Like I use social media for many different reasons.
Marketing. Yeah.
Like I played games before. I'm in front of my computer probably too much. Here we are in front of our computer, connecting in some way, talking about the illusion of connection through this. And, the more I saw how it was affecting health, these are things that I'm passionate about. I had people in my life going through mental, shortcomings. And it's just like, man, the world is really becoming, we've never been more connected, but we've never been more disconnected. And it was happening right in front of me. And I'm just like, how do we bring people back into public spaces, motivated because they have a new social tool to connect in real time? And we built a first of its kind social compass, law of attraction tool that when you walk into an event or a new location, a Linxy location, you check in and go live, and our software tells you where your best connections, conversations, collaborations are in real time. And so it's an event tool that you don't delete after the event. You use it to find the after party where people are gathering aligned with your interests, where you can go to that brewery, that lounge, that museum the next day, the coffee shop where people are gathering at that align with your interests. And when you check in and go live, you can find who's in a social mood, how you align with those individuals, and you have a little bit of data using keywords in these different colored categories that we created called our social links. It's like your own social DNA, and you design choosing these keywords that builds this like color social DNA of like these different words. And then that's like what you're entering the space with. You're entering with your ideas, the things that you want to connect on, the passions that you have. And so instead of, entering a space as a physical being only and people seeing you as the physical being, they're seeing you for almost like the astral, the color, the colorful insights that you bring into the world, the passions, the energies that you bring. And somebody can walk up to me and be like, hey, it looks like you're into molecular biology and exosomes. Me too. But nobody's going to say that unless you're like putting that energy in the world. And so it's a very unique way to help people be seen, be heard, and belong at all these different events and spaces, so that you don't leave an event without making your best connections or having your best conversations while you're there.
Dude, I think you guys have created genius in this. Just from the reflection of a person in the events industry that goes to conferences, we've lost touch with being able to connect with other people in a marketing way, or in a cold, relationship way, because of social media itself. Like you said, I mean, like there's this buffer in between. So I took on steps to introduce myself to people through LinkedIn or things of that nature before I would go on the floor, so that they had a reference point of who I was when I walked up to them. But it doesn't really align them into, like you said, that place of where you are in life. And if I was able to walk into a conference and say, oh, Sam and Ashley, man, they're both in this frame of mind that I'm in. This is going to be a cool conversation. You already feel the attraction pulling you in those scenarios, and finding those ways to network with each other and create a stronger light presence around that. And so I pitched these to some friends the other day in a conference setting, and said there was no better way to actually market your program and put your convention out than this scenario, because you're eliminating the walls and the barriers of
The
this
barriers,
idea of
the invisible
connecting.
barriers that hold us back. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about like how much money the industry's spending trying to present a party or an experience for people to go to network. That networking does not happen because that barrier wasn't crossed, and food and beverage isn't doing it anymore. A special setting isn't that attractive. It just turns into a party. And so for me, I'm super excited to see your product come into the world all around because I'm open for a conversation with anybody I'm around. It just seems like the rest of the world needs to have a little bit of a buffer to get to know who I am too. And that's very cool that you're putting a product that allows me to put myself out there without having the hundreds of hours of necessary information in front of them to make a calculated decision whether I'm trustworthy or not.
Yeah. Yeah, because here's the thing, you go to an event or a location, and how many things hold people back from connecting? There are all these invisible barriers. Maybe he doesn't want to talk to me. Oh, maybe let's assume that he's not a very nice guy. What if I say the wrong thing? Social anxieties, all these things like are crippling us from going up and making the best connections. And sometimes it's we're tired of small talk and we don't want to, go to the wrong
Yeah.
conversation. And
Yeah.
so what we're trying to really solve is if we strip away those invisible barriers and that social anxiety, and who is in a social mood, how you align with this person wants to talk to you, you're seeing them in a different light, you're seeing them in a different color. And then instead of just being an attendee at an event, watching all the speakers get all the attention, we're almost giving everybody that microphone to say, hey, I want to
Dude.
talk about human performance. Who else wants to
Yeah.
talk about human performance? Oh, 9 other people. We can literally
Yeah.
gather in real time that easy. We
Yeah.
can pull each other together in a small group. And it's like a masterful breakout group organizer as well. And so you can find your one-on-one conversations if you're getting really specific, like exosomes, or if there's
Yeah.
500 people at the event and 15 want to talk about, let's say AI leadership or enlightened
Yeah.
leadership. You can find those conversations in groups like with precision, and then there's no resistance, pulling people or holding people back
Yeah.
from making those connections.
I see the genius in it. I really do. I can't wait to see it expand into the industry around us, and you guys got a great hold. So we've come to this place now where you and I we have a lot of agreement in our strategies and how we're aligning ourselves. But somewhere in there, I'm sure you ran into a place where you were like, is this working? Am I spinning my wheels? What did you do when you were in that spot? How did you work yourself out of it? Because I mean, for everybody to hear it out there, when you're going through your journey, it's not a straight linear line to nirvana. It's an up and down adventure like in the ocean. And I think you just kind of get better at coming through the bottom parts to get to the up part. And you realize like I'm just gaining tools to deal with the light that's always been in front of me. Like nothing's necessarily going to change on the outside. The way we see it, we change. And that for me, there were some struggles in there. I'd love to hear how you work through some of those.
Yeah, man, I've had so many sticky moments in my life. Actually, it's why I kind of wrote this book, because I had my own sticky moment and had hundreds of entrepreneurs in sticky moments. And how do you get unstuck when you feel stuck? I feel like so many people. Somebody reached out to me a couple weeks ago and was like, "Hey, can you help me? I'm so stuck and I don't know what
Mm.
to do." And I think it's always like realigning with what are you trying to accomplish, and things don't go right. Like in over the last 2 years of us building our beta product and then our go-to-market product, and then now we're raising our first round of funding outside of our family and friends money and what we bootstrap the company. Like there's so many things that are slowing us down because maybe we haven't elevated our capabilities to be able for the next level of the journey. And
Mhm.
every journey you take is going to have so many tiers and levels to it. And the question is, how are you evolving yourself or transcending your capabilities to be able to handle the next level? And so part of what I think about that, holds people back from, advancing momentum towards their goals as well as they want is they're not doing the hard work to continually advance themselves to be ready for the next level of what the game
Yes.
takes, what the challenge takes, or the mountain that they're climbing. Are they still trying to climb this mountain without picks when there's ice? And you better figure out how to get some picks or
Yes.
whatever you got to do to get through the ice.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing you can do when you do feel stuck, if this is the ultimate question that you asked your dean, is really stop and reflect and be like, okay, sometimes we have so many things going on that we lose focus of what our North Star is and what we're really trying to accomplish. And it's good to just sit back. And I do a lot. I write every day. I meditate every day.
Mhm.
It's something I end my day with, is planning out my next day. And then I come into the
Mhm.
next day and I say, all right, here's my plan. How am I going to go about trying to accomplish or achieving one or two or three things in my day? And some days I'm thriving and maybe I'm trying to achieve 5 to 10 things. But sometimes it's like, all right, how can I just take one step forward
Right.
towards my North Star? And so if you ever feel stuck, or you're ever like, what do I do now? I think the best thing is just to take a deep breath, start doing some writing. And if you can get your thoughts out, and then if you can realign with your North Star of what you're really trying to accomplish, try to come up with all the different ways that you could accomplish that you could take one step in that journey. And after you take one step, typically there's a light that opens up that says, oh wow, now that I opened up this,
Yeah.
I know what the next step is. And it's really always just figuring out what is the next step. But sometimes it takes like a debriefing that you need to go through, a meditation, a quiet phase where you just got to say, all right, why the heck am I doing this? What is the
Yeah.
North? Write down these different thoughts. What are all the different ways that I can do this? Now we have tools like ChatGPT and AI that can give you many different things that you could do, but are you actually putting in the work daily to take that next step to get you unstuck?
Yeah.
And sometimes when people are stuck, they're so paralyzed that they're unable to actually take any action or make one step or even think about it holistically of what is the next best step. And
Yeah.
those are some of the different components I look at when I think of somebody being stuck. Is what's one thing you can do this week? Okay, you just listed 5 things. All right, now let's prioritize those 5 things that you can do
Mhm.
this week. And here's the one thing that you have to finish tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what is success? Now, if you did this one thing and if you accomplished it perfect, what does that look like? And if you can detail that, and how would you feel once you accomplished that one thing? Dang, I would
Yeah.
feel pretty good. Now you're putting
Yeah.
yourself in the emotion of actually accomplishing or achieving that. And so you can
Yep.
taste. And now you can almost reverse engineer. If you really got to get into it, you can reverse engineer, okay,
Yeah.
how do I create that through
Yeah.
understanding the emotion of how I'm going to feel once I accomplish that? Then that
Yep.
gives you a taste of what you're chasing. But I think it's just taking it in baby step and one step at a time. And how do you just slowly.
Well, I think you outlined it perfectly. I would agree with all that you said. First off, it's work. The daily effort of being alive and living is work, and I think learning is a skill set that later in life that we embrace, and we realize, like, we can all learn whatever we want to learn if we're willing to invest ourselves in it. It's just time that kind of overlaps that, and sometimes it requires a lot of time, a couple years of studying on this position of yourself. I've been in it for 7 years. Meditation gives me the strength in the morning to start from a baseline that I can really grow from. When it starts to get rough in there for me too, I remind myself of my future self and how would he want to feel. And I use terms with myself like, hey, man, in 4 days from now, when you're back on top, do you want to feel like a loser about this thing? Or do you want to feel like you really decided that you were, working on it as you went? And I'll catch myself, I call it being the experiencer versus the experience. And I'll catch myself falling into the experience and I'll realize, like, oh, you're not the experiencer right now. You're going to need to lift yourself out of this and realize you're supposed to be here going through this because of the learning, but you don't need to feel all the pain and the troubles of it along the way because that's essentially the lesson. You can work through that. And I found that in my own personal journey, every book that was ever suggested to me, and I always noted it in order and read them in order or listened to them in order. And funny enough, those books would give me answers for the troubles I was in 6 months later when I got to them. So the universe has this weird way of teaching you if your ears are open to the idea of the information itself and you give up on this thing that you know better. I mean, like the brain only knows what it's been exposed to in its life. The universal consciousness has all the answers. So it's a matter of lifting yourself into that place and realizing like that's where that information is going to come from. It's going to take a little time. And how do you want to feel when you finally get there and you receive it? Do you want to feel like you yelled about it the whole way, or that you were patient and that you were like you stoic around this ideal? And I have like a lesson or a circumstance in my life that happens a lot when I travel, and I'll arrive somewhere frustrated, anxious, tired, without my strength. And our tendency as humans is to value judge everything around us. I say to myself immediately, "Do not judge today. You're in this experience where you're at. You're not going to get out of it. Get some sleep tonight. And tomorrow morning, how you feel is where you can start from. And a lot of times I'll use that even when I get home from a long trip and, family wants to be around you and have this huge conversation. I don't fake the conversation anymore just to make them feel better. If I need to go to sleep, I just go in the room and go to sleep, and then I'll have the conversation the next day. And it's shocking to people sometimes that you don't fit in that realm. But when you're conscious of yourself and realizing, like, hey, this really is, like you said earlier, it's about exercise, moving into your experience and then resting into your healing, and then moving to your experience and resting into your healing. And we make it sound so complicated with all these things that you and I are saying. But the truth is, give yourself a chance in the morning to go within. That's where I found my strength. And then put yourself in a place where you allow information to come into your life that's not yours,
Mm.
and let yourself learn from that. And those two things for me, and having some patience in the middle, have really helped me grow into this ideal. I love to say, man, I mean, like those of us that are really shining light within ourselves and mirroring into others, we did the work. That's why we can see what we see in front of us. And I respect the fact that you've put that kind of time into your life, man. It shows through your work. It shows through the people around you. I love, where you've taken like the universal calling and structured it into this company of yours, because you're taking that whole essence and you're moving it into that, and you're essentially shining it with a floodlight now and giving it that opportunity for others to see it in that mirror from their own perspective. And I bet you a lot of people haven't really thought about walking into a social setting and realizing that there's people in that Starbucks that may be just like you. And if there was a connection, you could walk up to their table and say hi and have a 30-minute conversation and bring that light to the scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is really exciting that you have that opportunity.
Yeah, net worth, network, and there's amazing connections around us all the time. It's like, are we
Yeah.
really unlocking them, and what percentage are we missing? I bet it's
Yeah.
98% of our best connections we're missing in real time because we haven't, our human behavior hasn't had this tool before, but now we're not quite using it yet. Or, we have 7,000 users and we're mostly here in the Southeast and mostly even in Charlotte. We've done a couple events outside of it, but yeah, we're really trying to expand this product to give people this unique power, this social compass, this law of attraction tool that they can use to, find the conversations, connections, the energy fields that can help them. And you were saying, I want to transition to something that you were saying a little bit ago, like, hey, I feel like a loser. I'm not doing this. Like that energy that people might be able to feel. Like I've been there many times, and yes, I've done the work. I still have those challenging thoughts. Luckily, I have thoughts that supersede those and kind of quiet that critic that lives in all of our
Mhm.
head. And
Yep.
I always talk about you got to build this like savage brain so you can quiet the critic. Because the
Mhm.
critics always want you to be comfortable, take the easy path. And I think that, especially when people aren't in an optimal state, I think that's kind of sometimes what really perpetuates that state is they don't take action. And then the next
Mhm.
day they're like, man, I didn't do anything yet.
Mhm.
And then they're just thinking about their non-doing. And if you
Yep.
can just do and do and do,
Right.
and even if you fail, and the world's trained us that failure is bad, but failure
Yeah.
is in a way good. Like I know it sounds crazy. It's
Yeah.
almost hard to
No,
say
it's
it.
not, no, it doesn't. It's absolutely perfect. And when
Go
you work
forward.
into the light like that every day, you realize, like, yeah, that darker energy is pulling you down. It's pulling you into it. The more you're not fighting to be within that work that you're doing every day, whether it's meditation or it's mindfulness, taking that walk outside. And I found, even in my own personal situations, sometimes the disconnect in my flow isn't my work. It's a family member I haven't reconciled with, or it's an effort in my own personal life that I was supposed to put forward, whether it was diet or exercise, and I hadn't done it yet. I held it off out of the great excuse of being busy as a businessman, but knowing that that's what's creating this unbalance. So sometimes it doesn't even come from what we see in front of us. It comes from this reflection point of, how we're actually that vessel living within our experience. You've got a great podcast you've lost. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the jellyfish before we wrap today, because I just think it's such a cool, aspect of the way that you're presenting it.
Yeah, and I'll just lead in with the last thing I'll say on the, if you take that next step and then you wake up the next day like, man, I'm grateful, and you start your day with gratitude, you're like leaning into, I'm grateful that today I'm going to accomplish X and I'm just going to do it. And then you wake up the next day with a little bit more self-love and gratitude and a little bit more self-love and gratitude, and that like builds your confidence. And it's built my confidence so much from like doing all this to have the audacity to come up with this new concept called the human jelly. We have this new podcast called The Currents of Consciousness, and we kicked it off with these 3 episodes plus the intro. So we'll call it 4 episodes of how humans relate to the jellyfish and how it's a concept for understanding human potential. And similar to the jellyfish, we too have piezoelectric light energy. We have piezoelectric energy in our bones. And that's just like where there's mechanical stress, there's this electricity that can happen. And that's how jellyfish create their light. We too have that same piezoelectric energy, and it lives in our bones as well as our pineal gland, which is deep in our brain. Some people call it the third eye, but it's like soft crystal in between our thalamus, both sides of our thalamus. We have 2 pieces of our thalamus or sides of our thalamus, and then a pineal gland right in. There's a pine cone. You see this big pine cone outside the Vatican. You see the Pope with the pine cone on his thing. Like there's something to this pine cone, this third eye, Illuminati. I don't know, Illuminati. It gets a little conspiratorial there. But if we can have a clean body, the concept is if we can cleanse our body from all the toxins that we put in it, microplastics, fluoride, all the things that actually calcify and harden our crystal pineal gland, similar to a washed ashore jellyfish, it hardens, loses its light, loses its transparency or authenticity. We too have that capacity to harden, calcify our pineal gland and lose our light capacity. And so if we can detoxify and we can have the right inputs through our gut, the 3 components of our podcast talk about the gut, the heart, and the brain. Those are, the main components. And our gut is like an intelligent system. Unfortunately, in the world today, we have so many toxins and poisons in our food, our medicine, all these different things that are corrupting the intelligence of our system. And if we can fuel our gut, as known in Eastern medicine as the second brain or hara, we can fuel our energy, our mitochondria, our ATP. We can fuel our electromagnetic heart. So our electromagnetic heart has this like energy field about it that we can expand this energy field. And if people don't believe in the energy field, electromagnetic energy field, frequency field, go study Nikola Tesla's deep work. A lot of it's been hidden, but a lot of it is coming out right now. And it is beautiful. I think he should be the number 1 person that was taught in school because it talks about human brilliance there. Anyway, you fuel your gut, you fuel that authenticity, that heart-brain coherence that me and you talked about earlier, that signal. And as you tune that signal and fuel your highest level of energy and get rid of all your trauma, your toxins and all these things, not that anybody can get rid of all those things, and you start getting rid of all that resistance, that inflammation. And if you're able to use that energy and channel that energy towards your light electrical capacity, your energy field expansion, your consciousness expansion, you literally can expand your electromagnetic energy field, your frequency field that we possess. Now and if you're tuning your signal towards what you want in your life, you're expanding your sensory system. So you're stepping out of just the 5 physical senses into like these more intuition manifestations. You're tapping to a higher level of universal consciousness that you talked about. And that allows us to sense like and perceive at a higher level. And now we can start to maybe come up with creative ideas and thoughts outside of maybe what we typically could have been. And that can help our intuition skills make better decisions. It can help our law of attraction. It can help us manifest what we want to attract into our life better because we have more perception and understanding. And I'm trying to pack 4 episodes into
Dude, you said it all already. They've got to watch your podcast. This is
it's fun.
I'm going to leave it here because I got to tell you, this is the best ending of an episode that I can imagine, because ultimately we have framed this back and forth, and the idea of taking advantage of the universal mind and not focusing on the brain, but seeing it more as the computer and how it relates into your body and being connected into the almighty consciousness is literally the fantasy of the world we're living in now in technology. But it's just being manufactured from humans. The truth is, once we realize like that information is out there, certain aspects of yourself change. Like I don't role rehearse anymore. I used to role rehearse everything. So I said the right thing to everybody that was around me. Now I realize like that's just this thing working up here from a limited aspect of time when I'm allowing myself to speak from wherever that is. The stuff that comes out is what's supposed to come out. And it comes out in a way that sometimes I don't even hear when I'm saying it, but it's aligned me into this place, reduce stress, reduce anxieties, and it creates this idea of, you know, working within your dopamine, working within your higher vibration chemical aspects, and allowing these things that are negative or like disingenuous feelings to start to create pain. It starts to release those, and we're in control of this. It's not a matter of medicines and things of this nature. It's literally about opening yourself to this avenue of communication, realizing that we have and we were blessed with this ability to do this as a vessel. And once we can release ourselves from the body and know that we're part of an equation, that we're being used, I say it's like being the finger connected to the hand, connected to the arm, connected to the body of the universe. Just be the finger, be the best finger you can. Stop fighting with the other ones. It's really about realizing like you have a job to do that has nothing to do with the other fingers, and you can allow that to be what it is.
Yeah, and I
It's
think
a pleasure, dude.
I think a lot of people are looking for answers outside of them externally. But
Yeah.
one phrase that I'm really contemplating and chewing on these days is the kingdom of God is within you. And a lot of
It is.
answers is about going within in silence. And how can you connect to that greater source, that speck of divinity that God
Yeah.
lives within us? And so how can you go discover it and then bring it to the world?
God bless you, brother. We're going to end on that, man. Tell everybody how they can find you. I'll have it in the show notes as well, but I know they're going to want to hear your podcast. And obviously, your company has so many values that they can put into their own personal companies too.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for the time, Dean. Always a pleasure connecting with you. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at Joel Puthoff. You can find Currents of Consciousness on all podcast platforms. YouTube is the only one on video. So if you don't want to see my face, go to Spotify and Linxy Live. We're in all app stores, and so you can download it. And if you're an event organizer that wants to elevate your events, or you're a location wanting to drive new traffic and community, or you're a user wanting to experience the world a little bit different through a heightened level of connection, we're in the app store, or linxy.live is our website.
Awesome. All right, brother. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah, you as well.
Well, there we go. Another amazing example of the universe working in its magnificent way today. Appreciate you showing up and look forward to seeing you again at Leadership and Enlightenment.